serious?
Alright, so before I go through the actual deck, I'm going to give you my thoughts on Traptrix so far. Traptrix themselves seem very hard to build a deck around, as their entire kit is based around reaction, so you don't actually do anything, you just rely on your opponent to do something and you react to them. And because of this, a lot of the times my opponents would notice that I'm playing Traptrix and then just stop doing what they're meant to be doing for their win condition and just beating me to death with 1800 attack monsters because my monsters don't get any more powerful than they already are. Now, obviously this could be a result of my bad deck building. I'm not exactly the best deck builder around, but I can't actually see a way to build a deck around trap hole cards that is not reactive, since that's kind of what trap holes do. Another major downside to building a deck around trap hole cards is a majority of the cards are used situationally, so it's kind of hard to build a deck around specific situations. So for this reason, I don't ever see this deck ever reaching a top tier. It's more of just a deck that's used for people that want to make their opponent smash their phone screen. It may get better in the future with more Traptrix support, but it definitely needs more support. Also keep in mind this is day one and my opinion might be completely useless, and I'm currently in Platinum, so the people I'm playing against aren't exactly playing the most meta decks. Alright, so now let's talk about the deck. So the skill I chose for the deck is Endless Trap Hell. This is because obviously the deck is over 50% trap cards, so why wouldn't use this skill? Plus, this skill has some synergy with Treacherous Trap Hole, in that it can remove Treacherous Trap Hole's downside, which we'll talk about a bit later. This deck runs two Traptrix monsters, Traptrix Atrax and Traptrix Dionaea. What Atrax does is, you can activate whole trap cards from your hand. The activation and effects of normal trap cards activated on your side of the field cannot be negated. So this card is actually really powerful, as it makes it so that nearly every trap card you run in this deck can't be removed by your opponent, since every single trap card will still be in your hand and no one runs any kind of hand destruction. It also gives you insane bluffing power, as your opponent doesn't actually want to play anything once you've played this guy on the board in case you have Slaying in your hand, or he might just play something blindly anyway and be instantly removed because he didn't respect the fact you might have Slaying in your hand. Dionaea has the effect that when this card is normal summoned, you can target one Traptrix monster in your graveyard and special summon that target in defense position. When this card is special summoned, you can target one whole normal trap card in your graveyard, set that target, but banish it during the end phase of your next turn if it is still on the field. You can only use the effect of Traptrix Dionaea once per turn. So honestly, I'm not exactly sure on this card yet whether or not it's good or not. I think it's bad because I don't really see a reason for you to have any Traptrix cards in your graveyard, considering once you've got a Traptrix monster on the board, it should be pretty easy to defend. And if it's not defended, you're probably already dead anyway. And another downside to this card is, it works better when there's more of itself in the deck, as it likes to be special summoned, so you'd have to run more of this card that may just be bad to make it better, which is kind of Maybe this card would be a lot better in a deck that's built around it, so like if you ran Grass is Greener or something and aim to send more cards to your graveyard so that you can actually utilize this person's effect more often. But as it stands, it seems that you're only really running this card because there's no other Traptrix options. Obviously, it still does synergize pretty well with the deck in that it can bring back other Traptrix monsters such as Atrax, and it does have the effect to potentially remove a trap card from your graveyard, so Treacherous' effect will go off again. And both these Traptrix cards are immune to whole trap card effects. Alright, so I think this deck needs a win condition outside of just making your opponent smash his phone screen, so I decided to add heroes into the deck through Vision Hero Witch Raider. This card makes a lot of sense in the deck, considering it requires trap cards to summon, and 50% of the deck is trap cards, so it's really easy to get this card out, it can remove your opponent's backline, and then you can easily just swing at your opponent for lethal. Also, considering this card is a hero card, it can also be used with Mask Chains, so it can take Destiny Hero's win condition of Anki and use that for you to have any Traptrix cards in your graveyard and Anki can be. The rest of the deck is basically just the trap cards. The deck runs 5 trap hole effects: Nightmare, Adhesion, Void, Treacherous, and Floodgate. and all of these can be used from your hand as long as you have Atrax on the board. Treacherous Trap Hole, obviously very powerful card. If you have no trap cards in your graveyard, target 2 monsters on the field, destroy those targets. The cool thing about Treacherous in this deck is, even though it requires you to target 2 monsters, you can target one of your own monsters, since Traptrix can't be destroyed by trap hole effects, so it will have no effect on your monster and will still destroy your opponents. Also has a little bit of added synergy with Dionaea, as Dionaea can remove trap cards from your graveyard so that you can still activate Treacherous. Same with your skill. Adhesion Trap Hole has the effect that when your opponent summons a monster, half the monster's original attack. So the only reason I use this over Mirror Wall is simply because it can be used from your hand. Nightmare has the effect that when a monster that is special summoned this turn activates its effect on your opponent's side of the field, negate the effect, and if you do, destroy the card. So honestly, I think this card is actually really strong. It might even see play in decks outside of Traptrix, despite it having Traptrix in its name. It can be a very good card in specific metas. For example, against vampires, you can just simply negate any of their special summoned vampires, including the ones that are just being used to search for cards, and just remove them. The only real downside to the card is that it requires your opponent to activate the effect on the turn they're summoned, otherwise it just won't proc, but most cards do use their effect on the turn they're summoned. Floodgate, if you don't know what Floodgate does, you've been living under a rock. And the last Trap Hole card is Void Trap Hole. When your opponent special summons a monster with 2000 or more attack, negate the effect of one of those monsters with 2000 or more attack, and if you do, destroy it. So this card is very similar to Nightmare, but it does have the added negative of that monster has to have 2000 or more attack to be negated, so it's strictly worse. And the last trap card in the deck is Mirror Wall. Mirror Wall is in here because, one, it has very good synergy with Witch Raider in that it stays on the board after you've activated it, so it can still be used with Witch Raider as one of the tributes. Plus, as I said before, this deck is super reactive, so there's really nothing your monsters can do outside of just the trap holes. So if your opponent goes first, already has a monster on the board, you can't really do anything about it. So this is why you have something like Mirror Wall on the board, so when your opponent swings at you, before gameplay showing the second action. If you liked the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, put any comments if you got any questions or even deck ideas. I'd love to hear how to make this deck actually viable, because as it stands, I think this deck's more just a fun deck. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.
Hey, big brother, can I watch SpongeBob?
Shut up, Mokuba. I'm busy flagging YouTube videos to compensate for the fact that I have an extremely small penis.
Oh.